Hi, I'm Allison Miner. I am the Smart Eater. I'm also a registered dietitian and I'm a part-time cook. And so today we're going to focus on two African-inspired dishes. I want everybody to keep in mind that Africa is a large continent. The UN subdivides it into 5 sub-regions, and each of those sub-regions is further divided by between 5 and 20 different nations. So you can imagine every single nation has its own culture, it has its own traditions, and certainly it has its own recipes. So when we talk about African food, we're really talking about kind of a fusion of lots of different foods from lots of different places. African food is very nutritious, it's very delicious, and I'm hoping that more people are inspired to try African food. I'm going to be giving you some nutrition tips along the way, some things that maybe you didn't consider. We're going to cook 2 separate dishes. The first one is a stuffed baked plantain, and the second one is a East African inspired salad, and I believe it's pronounced kachumbari. Both of these recipes are developed by a Nigerian chef. Her name is Ima, and she has a website called Immaculate Bite. So if you want more information or you want to explore the recipes, by all means check it out. Okay, let's get started. The first thing I want to show you that we need, we're going to talk about the ingredients, is the protein. And I'm going to use ground turkey. It's 99% fat-free. I use it because there's a lot of other fat that we're going to put in this dish, and the fat from meat is not necessarily healthy, particularly ground beef. It's high in saturated fat. The other reason why I don't like ground beef is because it is not environmentally friendly. It takes a lot of our natural resources just to produce a very small amount of ground beef, and so as we know, we have a problem in the environment right now. And if you can substitute ground turkey or ground chicken, more the better. You can also use vegetarian products. I have this in my freezer. It's a soy-based ground beef. You can also use tofu if you prefer to be vegetarian and you want to even be healthier than some of these things. You need a plantain. You can get 2 to 3 or 4 depending on how much you want to prepare. I'm only going to use 1, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. Now let's talk about how to select one. This one has some brown spots, as you can see. And the reason why I selected this is because it's slightly sweeter. When you buy a plantain, some of them are green, and the green ones have more starch in them, right? They're young, and so they're starchy, and there are some recipes that call for green plantains. As the plantain ripens, it turns more yellow, and then finally there's more brown. And so I like my plantain to be a little bit sweeter, and so that starch is converted into sugar. There's no more calories, it's just sweeter, and so that's what we're using in this recipe. Instead of using another plantain, I'm going to use a green pepper. And the reason is because, just to show you a different way that you can make it, some people don't like the taste of plantains. In fact, plantains, just like ground beef, it's not necessarily environmentally friendly because we have to fly it from a warm, humid climate. And of course, that comes with a cost. And you can grow green peppers, right? They're very high in vitamin C, and they're very cheap, and you can use them all year round. You're going to need a little bit of green pepper and or red pepper. I'm going to use half of both of these because I like the taste of each one. They're slightly different. What I find is if we only use half, what do we do with the other half, right? Unless we're going to cook again tomorrow. What I like to do is I'll chop up what's left over, and I will put it in a baggie, a freezer-proof baggie, and I will freeze it so that it's ready for the next time. And it lasts about, maybe a month or a month and a half. I'm going to do the same thing with this onion. I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to chop up the rest and put it in the freezer. We are going to need tomato sauce. We are going to need some spices. One is paprika. Spices are excellent. Do not discount the use of spices in your foods. They are excellent sources of antioxidants and phytochemicals. These are nutrients that reduce your risk for cancer. So by all means, use as many as you can. I have lots of spices in my cabinet. I'm going to add hot pepper flakes because they add a nice little spice to it. I like it a little bit hot. You're going to need garlic, and let's see, what else did I say? You're going to need some oil. I like olive oil. The recipe, I believe, calls for canola oil. The reason why I'm substituting olive oil is because I like the flavor, number one. Number two, it's a little bit healthier. It has shown to lower your risk for heart disease and improve your memory and decrease inflammation, which is really the cause of all chronic diseases. So a little bit of olive oil goes a long way. Now, you might use canola oil if you need to cook it longer or at a higher temperature, because canola oil doesn't burn as easily. However, I don't cook things at that high temperature, so I don't have any canola oil. And you can use a little bit of cheese, sprinkle cheese on top. That adds a nice tangy flavor. Now, cheese is also can also have a lot of saturated fat, so if you are watching your cholesterol, you're watching your weight, you probably want to use this judiciously, and I generally use it just a little bit anyway. Okay, let's turn the oven on. We need to put it on 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, now it's time to chop the vegetables. We're going to take care of the plantain first. So the first thing you want to do is cut off the ends, okay? And I'm going to chop these the ends into small pieces, and I'm going to put this into a bowl, and I will talk about this a little bit later. And then you're going to cut along the longest part of the plantain. So be very careful. Make sure you have a sharp knife. I'm going to lay that down and just try to make a shallow cut along the long edge. I like to make another cut just to give me a little bit more leverage so I can get the peel off a little bit easier. So let's try this. Okay, so now we're going to kind of push the peel off with the fatty part of the fleshy thumb. I don't want to hurt the plantain. Okay, I'm having some success. Let's just keep working. This part of the plantain, looks like it's coming off. It's a little bit loose. There we go. Okay. It's not quite like taking the skin off a banana, but and again, I'm not an expert in the use of plantain. I'm just going to cut off this little piece here. Tough piece. Okay, here we have our plantain, and we have the extra skin, and I'm going to deal with that in just a second. Okay, you put it on a nice baking sheet. I'm going to use a wrought iron pan. A couple of reasons. One is wrought iron is excellent for holding heat, and the second reason is some of the iron from the pan actually gets in the food that you're cooking. So particularly for premenopausal women and for young children that might have a problem with iron, using an iron pan is an excellent idea. So I'm going to oil this. Sometimes recipes call for using a oil spray, but it's not very good for the environment, and there are lots of chemicals in the spray that may not be so good for our health either. So it's just as easy to coat the to coat the pan. I'm going to add a little bit of oil on the plantain, and I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the green pepper so it doesn't dry out and get burnt. Okay? So we're going to put that there. Use my apron as my wiping, and then I'm going to put this in the oven. Okay, and we're going to leave that in for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to turn the plantain over. Now let's fix the inside portion, the ground turkey. So I'm going to turn the oven on. The stove. Now you can use a big pan, but I like using a wok. And the reason why I like using a wok is it's got a longer rim, and so it's less messy. And so when you're stir frying, it doesn't spill out over the top. So just sit that. You can get one that's got a flat bottom so that it fits nicely on your stove, on the gas stove or an electric stove. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the olive oil. It takes about 2 tablespoons. So I'm just going to eyeball it, put that in here. And now I'm going to add the onions and the green pepper. Okay, and we're going to cook this until the onions are translucent. So put that in there first, and then we'll add that. And then let's stir it a little. Coat it in a little bit of oil. Okay. Very colorful. So what I wanted to do while we're waiting for that to cook a little bit is I'm just going to cut these peels a little. Just chop them up. And I'm going to put them into this bowl. Get that tag off. Because I'm going to compost this. So I have a little compost bin that I keep next to my stove. And all those chopped up ends, the butts of the vegetables, the seeds, all that kind of stuff, the peel, I'm going to put in the compost bin. And I'm going to compost this with my compost bin outside. So this is just a bin that I use to collect things in. And as you can see inside, I've got some coffee grounds, I've got some tomatoes that went bad, and some a celery bite. And I'm just going to add the rest of this to here. And why do we want to compost in the first place? First of all, if we just throw this in the trash, that's a lot of food waste, right? When this decomposes in the trash, it causes a lot of greenhouse gases, and it's not good for the environment. And most importantly, when this is composted, it breaks down, it's going to provide excellent nutrients to the soil. And when I plant my garden in the spring, all those nutrients are going to be in those seeds and produce food that's just it has a tremendous taste and is more nutritious than sometimes what you can buy in the store. So it doesn't smell, and it just sits right here on my counter, and I empty it like maybe once every 2 weeks. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you was when I cut the green pepper, there was the seeds inside. So I can save this. This is the red pepper. This is the green pepper. And I can save these seeds, and I'm going to use these in the spring when I start to plant my garden. So we can use all parts of the plant, right? And, oh yeah, before I go back, let me just check on the vegetables. In fact, I'm going to add the ground turkey. We're going to let that cook. We want that to cook until it turns completely kind of a white color. I'm going to add just a little bit of oil, more oil. Especially since the turkey is 99% fat-free, so there's no natural oil in there. That's okay, the olive oil is a better oil to use. It can also turn the fire down. That's something that I do. Sometimes I put the fire up too high. So we're going to let that cook a little while. Now, the other ingredients that they want me to add, I'm not going to add until later, like the garlic, the parsley, and the paprika, because those are more delicate, and I don't want those to cook at a high heat. So we're going to let this really cook thoroughly. So I'll leave that there. And the last thing I'm going to show you is, here's the cut of onion, the cut of green pepper, and the cut of red pepper. And so I'm going to kind of flatten that out, and I'm going to put them into another bag, just so that we don't get freezer burn. We can lock out all the air, and I'm going to seal that. And I'm actually, before I put it in, I'm going to mark on here the date that I cut it, so I can kind of keep track of how long this has been in the freezer. Okay, so let's check on this again. It's not yet ready. Let's chop that. Okay, now I think we can add the tomato sauce. So it's about a can. And what I like to do is, just so I can be a little bit less wasteful, is I'll add a little bit of water to the can, because we might need a little bit of water if it dries out, just so I can get the little bit of tomato sauce that's left over. Listen, these are tips my mother gave me, okay? She grew up during the Depression, and they didn't waste anything. So, of course, we have more resources, but you can see that we're destroying the environment. So it's good for us to be just as careful about the environment as my mother was. So I'm going to turn that fire just up a little bit. Okay, and let that cook a little bit more. And now I have the parsley. I think I forgot to mention it, we needed parsley. I think it calls for a couple of tablespoons. I have more parsley than that. Parsley's great, it adds a nice little flavor. What's interesting about this parsley is I grew this over the summer, and the pot that I grew it in, I brought in, and so I have it in my kitchen. I can't show it to you now, it's a big pot. And it's still producing parsley. It's not the best, but that's okay. When the weather gets warm again, I'll put the pot back outside again. So that's just something that you can do. So here's my parsley, and here is my garlic. I think it calls for about a teaspoon of garlic, but I have probably a little bit more than a tablespoon because I like garlic. And we don't want to add that in too early because it will kind of destroy the flavor. So I'm going to add this, and there is some like that. And we will add the tablespoon of paprika. Now, one thing that I'm not adding is I'm not adding sodium or any salt to this. And the reason why is we are using too much sodium in our diet, and it's contributing to hypertension and a lot of other problems. And so you'll use less sodium if you will completely cook the meal and let people add their own salt at the table. Okay? And you'll use less salt if you do it that way. But you can add as much pepper as you want. Just leave the salt out. You're also going to get some salt from the cheese when we put that on top. So you definitely want to leave that out. Okay, that looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to let that continue. I'm going to add a little bit of the red pepper flakes. Again, that's something that I like to add, but you don't have to. And I'm going to let that continue cooking for a few minutes more. But in the meantime, I am going to let you see what it looks like. It's absolutely beautiful. I think you can see a little bit of it here. So I'm going to let that continue cooking. Okay, while all of that's cooking, we are going to make the salad. I'm going to make this very quick. The salad ingredients include tomatoes. It calls for 2, but I'm only going to use 1 because I don't want to make that much. A half of a red onion, diced, 1 to 2 jalapenos. I'm actually going to use half of a jalapeno because that's a lot of jalapenos unless you like it very spicy. 1 medium cucumber, diced, a garlic clove, minced, lime juice from a lime, and 1/4 cup of parsley or cilantro. I'm going to use cilantro for this because I like the taste of cilantro. For the dressing, we're going to use 1 garlic clove minced, a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of honey, and 1 teaspoon of basil. For this, I am going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. So here it is. This is the salad making, and this is the dressing. And it's got a top so you can shake it. Now I'm not going to add the dressing to the salad mix because of something called osmosis, and it will wilt all the ingredients, unless you're going to serve it all at one time. Since I'm only going to do 1 serving, I'm just going to use enough dressing just for the 1 serving. But we are ready now to fix and finish our stuffed plantain. So let's take out our finished product from the oven. And you can see the plantain is nice and a little bit of brown. And I added a little Tupperware dish to the green pepper because it's a little weaker now that it's cooked and it might tilt over. And let's bring over the chicken mix, put it here. I have the cheese right there. And we are going to carefully open the plantain. When I was taking the top off, I accidentally cut a little bit into the center, but it worked out very well. So if you don't have it split open like that, you can just split it open along the edges and just spread it as much as you can, just like that. And then we're going to add the meat sauce on top, like so. Okay. And this is a rather large plantain. Unless I were really hungry, I probably wouldn't eat the whole thing. We're going to add some to the green pepper. And, you know, this can be saved for the next day. And if you were using more than one plantain, of course, you would have just enough for another plantain. And since I'm not, there's enough that I can put in the refrigerator and save this for tomorrow and do the same thing over again if I really feel like it. Now I'm going to add some, I use extra sharp cheddar cheese just because it's a little bit more pungent, gives a little bit more flavor, but any sort of cheese that you want, we're just going to sprinkle a little bit on top of that. We're going to sprinkle a little bit on top of this. And now we are going to put that back in the oven and we're going to let that bake probably for about 10 minutes. Since everything is hot, what we're doing is we're just trying to combine all the flavors together. While we're waiting for that, this is the time for you to clean up all the mess that you made and set the table. Finally done. We get to relax. Pour yourself a nice glass of wine, maybe something water, light some candles, turn on some good music, and enjoy. The only thing missing is you. Swahili for bon appetit is chakula chima. Until next time, if you want more information about nutrition or you want some more recipes, check out my website, thesmarteater.com.